Hi, I'm Sravish. This is Trust Talks, a show celebrating innovation in GRC with organizations and people who are transforming GRC into a trusted and programmatic industry. Today, I have with me Dan Andrea, partner at KLR, a large New England audit and technology consulting firm. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today at Trust Talks.
Thank you, Sravish. I'm glad to be here.
Dan, you've audited multiple companies, different shapes and sizes, startups, large companies, public companies, etc. And you've seen the world of GRC evolve quite significantly in the last 10 years. What changes are you seeing in the industry, and what areas do you think we can do better in?
Well, that's a loaded question. So, yeah, just from my perspective, I don't know if I should be thanking you for your intro there because I have been doing this for 40 years. So, and in those 40 years, we've gone from mainframe environments to distributed environments to cloud environments, right? So, there is a lot of stuff that has changed over the years, but the key focal point remains the same as it relates to GRC or whatever you want to talk about it is, how do I control or how do I monitor my governance, my risk management, and my compliance activities, right? Through the years, it has been, writing on notepads, right? But we've grown to an area now where there's plenty of automated tools out there to assist in that process. So I would say to help in the GRC world, I think we continue to develop, tools, automated tools to help an organization through the governance and the risk management and compliance components, and continue to develop those tools. I would also say that we need to, outside of the tools, educate people on what is governance, risk management, and compliance, because, technology is great, but what I am seeing, and I've always seen over 40 years, where controls and governance or compliance break down is the human element. Okay. And so from an educational standpoint, I think, and it may not be a sexy answer, but I think if you get the education down and, tell people what governance is, governance is the tone at the top, right? We like to talk about in the profession. That's set by the board and it trickles down through the organization. That is an important concept because if the CEO is messing around, for lack of a better term, what do I, as a rank manager, why can't I mess around? Risk management, it's something I tell my clients, you do it, but you need to do a better job of documenting it from my perspective, how we do it. We have gone, and I've been saying this for almost 7 years now, risk management, particularly vendor management as a component of risk management, is huge. And only recently are people paying attention to it, where, in the past, I've been trying to drill it into my client's head. You got to look out for your vendors. Do I need to say Target to you? Have you heard of Target? Do you recall what happened? Just an air conditioner guy caused the breach. So, vendor management as a component of risk management is hugely component. It's huge. And what we're seeing is people getting cited based upon regulatory or lack thereof compliance because of their lack of risk management. Regulators and auditors, how do you protect what you don't know you need to protect? That, in a nutshell, is risk management. And that's where the GRC world needs to sort of focus. And then compliance. I think from a compliance perspective, quite frankly, what I've seen over the years, I don't know how many frameworks there are, Sravish. I've lost track. Okay. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think all the frameworks that are out there are common in a baseline approach, but I think, and this is, I may sound like an old man here. I think there is a certain financial benefit in developing a compliance framework. All right. And mandating that framework for your interested parties. So I don't know. And, I look at some people and I see all the acronyms. I don't know what half those acronyms are by names anymore. I think we're getting we're getting too spread out in compliance and trying to, to be a master to everyone. And I think everybody needs to take a step back in the GRC world, do your risk management, do your risk assessment, and build your compliance program off of that. It's not rocket science, folks, but I think we're starting to make it too complex.
I love that statement that you're making, Dan, which is it starts with education. And I always wonder when customers go to startups and say, I can only do business with you if you have a SOC 2 Type 2 attestation. And the startup says, I need to get that attestation in 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And they end up getting it. How do they do it without educating the entire business and the board on what they're signing up for? Because they're getting it to drive revenue. How do you implement an entire SOC 2 Type 2 compliance program and pass your Type 1 audit and attestation and do that in 4 to 6 weeks without education?
Well, you alluded to it there. I would hazard to guess that the people or the example you're citing is a Type 1 engagement, right? And Type 1 is as of a single point in time. Okay, so as of August 8th, an auditor comes in and opines on the design of your controls, not their operating effectiveness, just the designs. So how do you get it done? You've got, in that short period of time, well, you have to, and you're a startup, I would hazard to guess you need some type of partner to help you out, unless you've, from day one have been building policies, procedures, and business processes as you mirror. Most startups I know are too busy growing, trying to get business and earn revenue, and they'll let the control follow at some point, oh yeah, nasty controls, got to have them. So unless you had the foresight to start that, you need to get a partner to help you out to achieve that. And then the other thing is you need to be able to dedicate the resources internally or externally for that 4 to 6 week point in time. You need someone that's gone through it, simply because you're going to have to rely on someone that can help you write your report, write your testing matrices, and all that. And there's firms out there that can do that, and then give you your examination without sacrificing their independence, because that's obviously important. So you need to get that 4 to 6 week time frame, unless you've already gone through some other type of framework audit, perhaps, and can leverage that to the SOC 2 in terms of mapping controls back and forth. Yeah, you're going to need outside help, I would believe.
And in all the audits that you've done, Dan, what are some of the pitfalls that you see young startups taking, and what can they learn on how they should prepare to be successful, to get ready for an audit process and then finish the audit process successfully?
I think the big thing is the unfamiliarity with the process. Okay, most, if not all, of my clients are technology based. Most, if not all, of my clients that are technology based have undergone some type of framework or some type of technology audit, whether it's a pen test, whether it's vulnerability scanning, something along those lines. And that's a piece of cake, relatively speaking, as compared to a SOC 2 audit. They just think it's another 1 day, 2 day procedure to get through. So the biggest thing they can do is understand what exactly a SOC 2 examination is, what the different types of examinations are, what's a proper roadmap. So that's the key. That, getting that understanding, which will help them set the expectations for what they're about to undergo. Okay. The next thing is, like any project, right? You need a commitment from the top. Okay. You need senior management, the C-suite, if you will, committed to getting the examination done. Because if it's just something that you're trying to do to get a deal or get a sales, get a new sales customer or something along like that, you're going to fail. Okay, you may get that customer. That customer may check off that you have a SOC examination, but a SOC examination is more important than getting just that customer. It's a way of implementing a control mentality throughout the organization, and not only demonstrating that to customers, but also letting your owners and your board or whomever sleep at night, because your systems in place are okay, are functioning and operating effectively. So you've got to have that commitment at the top. Too often I see, and you can appreciate this, in a prior, one of my things I used to do was run a large software implementation practice. Okay. And the clients would ask me, who do you put on this project? And I would tell them, you put your best people. Okay. So they got to do their 40, 50 hours a week job. Then we got to get ready for this. You got to put that's what I mean by commitment. It's not something that you can just assign to someone that's been on through the door for a couple of weeks. It really needs you got to put your best people, and that's the commitment. And then everybody in the organization, again, part of commitment, needs to know what's going on, because you're going to have, typically how it's structured, a key person that deals with the auditor, but then that key person operates within the organization, going through DevOps, going through change management, going through HR, coordinating the efforts of all. Those people need to respect that key person, okay? Sometimes we see that that respect doesn't exist for whatever reason, and then the timing and everything fails. So that all comes with senior level commitment. So to put it in 2 points, commitment at the C level, right people on the job. Everything else should fall through there.
And when you've kicked it off and you have the commitment, you found the right people, at some point you have to start engaging an auditor. You have to talk to firms. You have to evaluate the firm, and you have to find the right auditor. How does a company find the right auditor? What are some of the questions they should ask, price points they should expect, as well as trying to understand who the best auditor would be in this process with them? How do you evaluate auditors?
Well, I've been an auditor for 40 years, so I obviously experience, first of all, experience, and not experience with larger organizations. If you're a startup, you want someone that understands the nuances, the peculiarities of a startup, understands that, they may not have every policy with the I dotted and the T crossed. They're looking to the auditor for advice as well as audit. So you want to get someone that is experienced in that world. If you get an auditor that's used to auditing the multi-billion-dollar clients, they're just gonna, they're gonna hand you a request list, and they're not gonna necessarily help you out and educate you on the process. They're just going to, because they're not experienced with the nuances of being a smaller organization. So I would obviously see what their experience is based upon companies like yourself. Certainly ask for references. Certainly spend some time asking for the approach. What's the approach? What's the timeline? When do we start? Also, seek out the auditor's opinion on, in the case of SOC 2s, what trust criteria is important. Don't automatically jump to say I need all 5. Have the auditor explain to you what the difference between confidentiality and privacy is. We often see that confused, where a client's just going to go out and get privacy, and we work with them saying, no, you really don't need privacy. Confidentiality is more what you're looking for. So work with an auditor that understands that type. You got to go with look at the CPA firm and make sure that their SOC practice has been audited by another firm. Okay. We in the CPA industry have a peer review process where every 2 years, our operations are audited by other firms. That's very important. That's the auditor being audited. That's a way of understanding the quality of the services they're delivering. And just get comfortable with them. After you go through the process, I mean, more often than not, you spend an hour or 2 with the auditor, or you're going to get comfortable with that individual. Also, take notice of how they respond to you. Okay, you send the potential auditor an email. Does it take an hour for he or she to get back to you, or a day? That could be indicative of responsiveness. Okay, so something small like that gives you just that little sort of advice there will give you a sense for how the engagement's going to be conducted in terms of responsiveness. So I could go on and on, but I mean, you're going to select an auditor the way you would, select some other type of important purchase, background checks, spending time, and then, understand how many, smaller organizations they've done, things of that nature.
Another big area that I've seen startups asking me a lot of questions about is how much does a SOC 2 Type 2 audit cost? How much does a Type 1 audit cost? How much does a Type 2 audit cost? And I see numbers all across the board. We have firms that are completing and delivering attestation reports for as little as $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. And then obviously we have firms that are doing it for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, in some cases more. What are your views on how this industry is pricing this process, and what should a startup expect when they see this variance in prices from their auditor?
So I guess you're right? And let me equate it with another. Well, first of all, public accounting firms are subject. I alluded to it earlier. We're a little different in that we're subject to various professional standards promulgated by the AICPA and our state CPA societies. Okay, so there are certain things that we have to do from a professional standards perspective that take time to do. The client doesn't see it. It's not adding value, quite frankly. It's adding value to the extent that it's making us deliver a quality product, but it's some of the stuff the client just doesn't see. I'm never going to be able to get around that. Okay. From a public accounting perspective, the pricing decision is, what do I feel I can do to safely deliver the service without getting myself in trouble from a QA perspective? Now, there's some firms probably that are a little bit of, gunslingers out there that will take maybe take risks that they're doing what they need to do from a professional standard. That's where the peer review comes in every other year, where it gets determined if their quality is up to snuff. And then, from a pricing perspective, I mean, the public accounting industry is always feeling price pressure on examinations because of those professional standards. I can tell you that there's a certain area where it's not germane to SOC 2, but it'll give you insight. There are employee benefit plan audits. What is that? A 401k audit. That's when an accounting firm comes in and audits the 401k. Well, a pretty important audit, right? Your IRA and your investments, you want to make sure that everything's going okay. The pricing for that over the years has gone down to some of the price levels that you are talking about, simply because it's off-season work for accounting firms, and they'll just discount the heck out of it. So why do I bring that up? I bring that up is because I think what you're seeing, depending upon timing, depending upon geography. Remember, I'm in Boston for those looking at, Boston billing rates are a little different than Kansas billing rates. Cost of living. I have to pay my auditors. Okay. So there's a piece of that in there as well. So it's, geographically based. It's people willing to discount, and it's just having to adhere to professional standards. Some of your clients that are asking you about the pricing, they may be used to, undergoing penetration tests, vulnerability assessments, PCI audits that are a lot less expensive, and they might try to equate that to SOC 2 examination. Unfortunately, there's, again, the professional standards. I'm not saying that PCI doesn't have its own standards branch, but the professional standards that we have to live in sometimes doesn't allow us to discount it to 2, 3, 4. What I'm also seeing, quite frankly, is some CPA firms just give the opinion, and a smaller firm will, a non-CPA firm will actually do the testing, etc. Which that could be interesting in one way, shape, or form. And then, some firms offshore the work. That could impact pricing. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're if you're sensitive to privacy, you're sensitive to security, your clients are sensitive to where their data is going, that could be an issue. But that's also a pricing thing. And then the final thing I'll say, remember that a SOC 2, Type 2, typically we do a minimum 6-month examination period. You have clients that are asking, or organizations that are asking, why can't I do it for 2, 3, or 4? They may be used to, again, other audits that don't cover a 6-month examination period. They cover maybe a couple of weeks. So the auditor's testing for 6 months, over 6 months on a sampling basis versus 2 weeks. There's a host of factors. I mean, my approach is to pricing is, we try to do our best on pricing. I hate losing on pricing, but there's a certain threshold I just can't go to. And hopefully the client, in those discussions we've had that you asked about earlier, what should companies do in interviewing an audit? Hopefully I can convey to them in those sessions that, we're not just giving you an audit, we're giving you some value relative to how to go about controls and compliance and things like that. Very long-winded answer, Sravish. I'm sorry about it. But it's just, pricing is, I'm sure you deal with it all the time too, right? It is what it is.
Dan, I can say that I've known you now for almost 3 years, and the way you conduct yourself and your colleagues conduct yourselves at KLR with the highest integrity, while at the same time with the highest level of partnerships, has been amazing to see. And I can tell you that if all the audit firms are operating at that level of partnership, but also that level of assurance, that costs time and money.
Yeah.
And you pay for what you get. And I love the way you and your firm do your work. And I hope that the entire industry can set a level where the audit process is affordable, but at the same time, we're delivering assurance, not just a check the box report.
Well, I appreciate that. It's the way it is, and I'm never going to be able to change it. But I tell the kids, I tell my auditors, I don't want to get into a situation where I'm losing on price. Because it's just not right. But anyways.
Yeah. Dan, one question that always bothers me in this industry, having observed how there's pressure on companies to get audits, attestations, etc. done. And then you mentioned earlier in today's conversation about managing your vendors. And so when you're a startup and you're selling to enterprises, you still have to go through their vendor risk assessment process. Mm-hmm. If I am investing in the governance, risk management practices, and the compliance practices, paying the money, assigning leadership, getting commitment from my board and my C-suite, and successfully getting a SOC 2 Type 1 or Type 2 attestation, why are enterprises then making me answer 300, 400, 500 questionnaires and not just staking the fact that an auditor has come and inspected me and provide this SOC 2 attestation? Why is the SOC 2 Type 2 report not enough?
Great question. I can give you my opinion on it. Again, like anything else, I'll give you my opinion. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. SOC 2 really has its originations out of, I go back to what was called SAS 48. Okay, that became SAS 70, and then became SSAE 16, SSAE 18, SSAE 21, actually now. So the whole purpose of these examinations was for an auditor to go in, audit the environment, and then everybody could rely on that report. And if you had questions, you would follow up with the client, and more often than not, that would suffice. The SOC 1 was dealing with a different audience. The SOC 1, even though there was a technology piece, was dealing with the finance people, right? Because it's for those, it's a report to help you out on the internal controls of your financial statements. SOC 2 comes along, total different beast, okay? You're dealing more with the technology side. You're dealing more with security and privacy of data. You're not necessarily dealing with financial transactions. Different report, you're different audience per se. Although the CEO wants to know about everything, now you're dealing with the head of IT, CIO, whatever you want to, whatever acronym we're dealing with now, CISO. Okay, so it's a different audience that has grown up with their own prejudices in terms of what they want to see in their vendors. The SOC 2 is, we say it in the opinion, it's not all of it is relevant to the details of every user. It's an overall report. There may be certain controls that are germane to customer A that maybe they're not comfortable enough that they've been covered in the SOC 2. Having said that, reach out to the customer instead of the 300-page questionnaire. Ask them about this, this, and this. Okay, that's I will say the acceptance is a little better than it was 15 years ago. But you're right. Certain industries, regardless, are going to get that 300-page questionnaire. I don't know how to do. I don't know. I can give you some answers on how to treat it. Say, no, thank you. Here's my SOC 2. Run the risk of losing the client, but and I know that if the business person seeking you out for your business wants to do business with you, they're going to tell the IT people to go pound sand. All right, work it out. They don't want to fill out the 300-page. They got the SOC 2. Is there some common ground to address your specific concerns? So I think when your client or when an organization gets that 300-page checklist, I encourage clients to call them up, get everybody on the table, tell them about the SOC 2, and see where they can augment the SOC 2 with their specific concerns. I'm not saying ignore it, but I'm saying that I think communication between the two entities can narrow that 300-page down. Because I got to believe in that 300 pages, 275 pages are in that SOC 2 report. And one thing we do, we make available to our clients if for any reason they have someone that wants to, that has a question about the report, we would certainly be willing to sit in on a meeting with them to talk about the report. So that's and again, that's what we do for smaller organizations because, they're not as fluent, if you will, but we make that offer. That's just expanding upon the report. It doesn't replace the report whatsoever, but it helps answer questions.
You should advertise that feature and service, Dan. I think that's a huge
work done. I'm just kidding. But again, it's just to help the client explain the report to whoever's looking at it.
Dan, one of the big things we like to do on the show is celebrate people that are trying to take this industry of GRC to the next level. People that inspire you, people that you look at and say, you're doing fascinating things, people that push you to be better. And these could be colleagues, these could be mentors, this could be a boss, this could be somebody you worked with, whoever. Who in your mind are trust champions who are taking this industry and not only pushing the industry to be better, but also pushing you to be better?
Huh. That's interesting. It's I couldn't cite one person or two people in general. I will say the people I look up to are those CISOs and the clients I deal with on a day-to-day basis, because they are on the front line. They are the ones that stay up at night wondering about the next big breach, what's going to happen. And it's just really impressive to see these folks continue to adapt on a daily basis to the ever-changing environment. Really, and I there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new. I know there's industry experts out there that people constantly read, and I learn something new every day in the security world simply because of my clients. Whether it's a tool, whether it's a approach to a specific area, whether it's a process they've implemented that has helped them secure their company data or privacy of their employee data or customer data. Those are the people that I really am fascinated by. It's not easy being a CISO. And not only do you have to be savvy on the technology side, but you've got to be able to communicate to your staff throughout the organization and to your board if it exists. That is a lot of skills that you need. And it's really impressive, the people that I deal with. And I'm proud of some of our clients just because of, again, they're small, but they're right on the forefront of technology, and it's very cool.
Amazing. Dan, when I first met you, you reminded me of a character in a movie, Doc in Back to the Future.
I'm going to tell my wife that. Okay. I don't know where this is going.
And so,
I'm sorry.
Dan, my question to you is, if you and I were in the movie Back to the Future, you're Doc, I'm Marty.
Of course.
And we're in the DeLorean, and we're traveling at 88 miles an hour into the future. And we're looking back 20 years from now at this world that we live in, and we're looking at all the GRC practices. Mm-hmm. What would be different? What do you think is going to be different, where we're going to look back and say, oh my God, you guys did it this way? Mm-hmm. That is so antiquated. That is so horrible. That is so silly.
Yeah.
What would the new world look like 20 years from now?
Well, I'm still getting over the Doc. But I think that some of the stuff that has just come out over the last 2 or 3 years will be generally accepted, right? Whether it's zero trust, whether it's blockchain, whether, that type of stuff. That's going to be, cheap, inexpensive, readily accepted, and a big piece of a security puzzle or a governance puzzle, right? XDR, MDR, that type of stuff. That's all going to be very, very prevalent. I also think you're going to see more continuous migration to the cloud. I think with that, you're going to see pretty much outsourced GRC and outsourced, like we have security operations centers, right? I think you're going to see that type of stuff being outsourced because it's not, GRC isn't cheap. It's like anything else, right? I mean, if you want to be confident, if you want to do it right, right now there's a hybrid internal, external. I think, we went to the cloud. Everybody's moved their infrastructure to the cloud. We're starting to see security as a service, right? Oh, not starting. It's been around for a while. I just think there's going to be a GRC service in the cloud. And that's just not tools, but that is, actual people working on governance and what have you. And then, I just think the continued, I'm a little concerned about AI, but it's unavoidable. It's, I referenced XDR earlier. AI is going to play a big role in the next 20 years. I just hope it's a little more than chat. Let's just put it that way, in terms of its approach to security.
I'm waiting for the world where there's going to be a SOC AI, where the AI CPA comes and says there's a new attestation that you have to provide if you're using AI in your product suite.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. The AI CPA, every organization is wrestling with how you audit this stuff. I mean, when I grew up with waterfall SDMs, right? So waterfall development methodology. Now everything is agile. Now every week, every 2 weeks, every day, you've got Jenkins or some other tool just automating the pipeline. When that first became normal, from an audit perspective, okay, how do you audit that? Well, we figured it out, how to do it and what the key control points are. We're always being challenged as a profession to figure out how to audit stuff, and this is no different. And we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Dan, any last thoughts, closing thoughts, or advice that you have for startups that are listening in today?
No, I just hopefully, I was able to give you at least one nugget to work with or to take home. I would say that, don't be afraid of a SOC 2. Don't treat it as a necessary evil. Look at it as a benefit. Not I tell potential clients it's a benefit in that you're not going to be eliminated off of a checklist in potential sales. But more importantly, or equally as important, it's going to be a health check on your organization, and you're going to, retain someone that'll help you work with developing controls and looking at GRC amongst other things as part of your environment. And welcome it. Don't be afraid of it.
I always tell startups that we work with, Dan, don't think of it as GRC, think of it as RGC, revenue generating compliance. And if you do it well, and if you do it in a differentiated manner, you can tell your prospect or your customer why you're better and safer to do business with than the competition. So hold yourself to a high standard. It will help you drive sales.
Absolutely. And that's going to permeate the whole organization, that mindset. Not just at the top, but throughout. Everybody's got to be committed.
Yep. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today on this edition of Trust Talks.
I enjoyed it myself, and Sravish, you have a great day.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care.